Have you ever felt like you have something in your eye and you can't find it? It's maybe the most annoying phenomena in ophthalmology. I'm Joel Hunter, I'm an ophthalmologist, and today that's what we're going to talk about. What is it that's in my eye when I can't find it? Okay, so a disclaimer here at the beginning. Sometimes there is something in your eye and you just can't find it. Your eye is very, very good at sensing if there is anything touching the surface. And so sometimes the thing that's on the surface of your eye, the disturbance on the surface of your eye is so small that you actually just can't see it. It is there, but you can't see it. In which case, the only thing that will help it over time is tears. Because here's an interesting factoid. Your eye can't tell the difference between a small change in the epithelium, a little bit of an abrasion, a little bit of an irregular spot, versus something that's actually a foreign object. So when something is there, it's one of two things. It's either epithelium, and there's a little spot where it's unpolished, you've got a little epithelial cell that's heaped up, or you've got a little spot where there's a tiny abrasion that you can't see, or there's actually a foreign object. It can be a piece of dust, and if it's a certain size, more than a couple of micrometers, you are going to feel it on the front of your eye, but you're not going to be able to see it in the mirror. Those are the cases where you can't find the thing in your eye, but something is there. But what about when something isn't there? In those cases where something isn't there, it's the same thing the vast majority of the time. You've got these little oil glands that line your lids called Meibomian glands. So if we were to draw your eyelashes right here, they're right along your eyelid margin, right here. But between your eyelashes and your eyelid margin, between your eyelashes and the part of your eyelid that's actually touching your eye, there are 25 or 30 of these little openings on your lower lid and on your upper lid. Those openings are called Meibomian glands. More specifically, those are the openings of the Meibomian glands because each one of those, like a little tiny tube of toothpaste, is going down into the surface, underneath the surface of your lid skin. And so it's just the opening of where it's basically like a tube of toothpaste that's squeezing out this Meibomian oil. Now the Meibomian oil gets a bad rap because it seems like that'd be gross if you have oil that's secreting onto the front of your eye all the time, but it's necessary because you have to have this oil on the surface of your tear film, on the thin layer of water on the front of your eyes, because if you didn't, your tears would just instantly evaporate every time you blink. You have to have some kind of surface tension. I don't know if you remember when there was that reservoir in, I think it was California, and it was evaporating too much, and so they got like 1 million of these little black plastic balls and dropped them all so they were all on the surface. It kept that reservoir from evaporating off too quickly. That's what your oil glands do for your eye all the time. There's just microscopic little plastic balls sitting on the surface of your eye, except in this case it's little oil molecules. And it's Meibomian oil from your Meibomian glands that do this. But what happens when one of those gets just a little bit clogged? If it gets really clogged, then you'll have something that's a real problem. You get a painful bump on your lid. But that's not usually what happens. One of these little guys can just get a little bit of what looks almost like a little rubber cap on the surface of it. And it's because one of my favorite words in medicine happens to it. It gets inspissated. Inspissated is when any fluid that should be free-flowing and very fluid, instead it gets a little bit dried up, a little bit sludgy, and doesn't flow anymore. This is very gross, but it's the best definition of it. Snot is snot until it gets inspissated, and then it is a booger. That's what happens with this Meibomian oil. It should be free-flowing, but if it gets too sludgy, if it gets too stuck, you basically have this little oil booger that's sitting right there, and it gets this little fibrotic cap on the surface of it. And the next time that happens, if you look closely enough in the mirror and you either pull down on this lid or lift up on this one and look just south of where your eyelashes are, you'll see there's going to be one little cap of this little inspissated Meibomian gland. And that's what happens when you feel something in your eye, but it's not really there. Now, if you're me, then you'll actually go up and just use your fingernail to try to take that cap off, and usually it works. But my official medical advice would be to come see an ophthalmologist, and they can do that for you. Hope that helps explain what it is in your eye when you can't tell what's there.